Welcome to the Ian Bousfield Experience. I'm glad you're here. This series of podcasts are just things that come up in my mind when I'm thinking about playing, when I'm thinking about teaching, and general thoughts about music. There are some things here that I hope you'll find really useful. And don't forget, if you've got any comments or if there's anything you want to discuss further, go to ianbousfield.com. Analysis leads to paralysis. Or does it? Does analysis lead to paralysis? This very famous saying in the brass world is attributed, I believe, originally to Adolf Herseth, one-time principal trumpet of the Chicago Symphony, although it's a saying that all of us have used many times. Trips off the tongue very nicely, doesn't it? Analysis leads to paralysis, and it's obviously clear what we're getting at. But there are two sides. There's the pro and the contra. Obviously, it's meant to mean that, if you overthink things, if you spend too much time nitpicking and trying to analyze things, you're just going to go in a downward spiral, which of course we all know. We've all been there. I have so many memories of being a kid, really. When I say a kid, I mean under 25. That's a kid for me now. I'm old. Of really working on perfection of articulation and sound, and the legato's got to be perfect, and the slide technique's got to be perfect, and it's all got to be perfect. And what am I doing wrong? Maybe this is, maybe I should breathe like this, and my corners should be like this, my tongue should go like that. No, what's it like? What's my embouchure like when it's really good? And you finish up wanting to throw the trombone out of the window. And the number of times I've been stuck on things in a practice room, I think, the concert just can't happen. It's just not going to happen. How am I going to do it? It's terrible. I'm going back a long time now. Back to the days when we used to do concerts, remember? And it's like, quite by some miracle, I'd get to the concert and it'd be not only good, but it'd be astonishingly good. Because I didn't have time to stop and think and analyse. And that, of course, leads to a whole thought process all of its own, which is like, hey, you're over-analysing, just play, just get on with it, just do it. And, of course, there's the big fad in teaching these days, which is just imagine what you want to happen. And great, it's good, great teaching tool, great playing tool. You've got this imagination, and it's great for people who, in order to imagine what you want to happen, you have to sort of work out what you want to happen. And the problem with a lot of people is they set about playing something, they don't have a plan. They don't really know what they're trying to achieve with it. So imagining what you want to happen is great. And that's the opposite of over-analyzing. So it can be very, very useful. But it's also an excuse, I think, sorry, that's a bit direct, isn't it? It's also can lead to teachers, as I've said before, not analysing and not teaching a student to be analytical where perhaps it is necessary so to do. And I always say, it's like getting a desk from IKEA, which actually my elbow is resting on right now. And you set out trying to build the desk, and if all else fails, you read the instructions. But you have to have the instructions, and you have to know what to do with the instructions. And I think analysis leads to paralysis is very often an excuse for teachers who perhaps don't understand totally how things work, or have been encouraged. No, that's not fair of me. They've been so encouraged by their own teachers not to think about the analytical side of things, let's say technically analytical side of things, that they haven't brought it into their teaching room. And I would, however, like to speak in favour, before we go any further, of analysis leading to paralysis. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, an experience that's happened to me with my class recently. One particular member of my class, who I shall not name, because that wouldn't be fair. Very talented player. Very talented player. And, if you go to the doctor and you're complaining of stomach pains or stomach complaints, doesn't matter where you go, whether you go to San Francisco, Stockholm, Shanghai, Moscow. I wasn't just going to stay with the S's there. Actually, if I tried, I'd probably have messed it up. Seville, there's another one, very good. Wherever you go, Sydney, wherever you go around the world with a problem with your stomach, the doctor's going to ask you two questions. I'm not sure, the only difference might be in which order they ask you, but it's going to be basically, what's your diet? Do you eat regularly and do you eat healthily? And the other thing is, how are the movements? How's the toilet action? Do you go regularly? And if the answer to either of those is questionable, well, the doctor will probably say, well, look, before I start running complicated and expensive scans, why don't you fix those two and come back in 3 weeks? And if you've still got a problem, we'll deal with it then. That's in conscious with proper health services, of course. And I very often have patients presenting, students turning up with apparent issues, apparent technical problems. And where I've got really tough now, is I say, can you play every major and minor scale in broken form? In tune, in time, good slide technique, good sound on every note. Can you do that? And I sort of spot check them. So, okay, let's go, let's hear it. And they arpeggios as well. So on. And invariably, of course, with the younger students, it's not necessarily where one would hope it to be, wish for it to be. And it's the same thing. It's like, well, look, do that, learn to do that, and then we'll talk about your apparent problems then. Before we go any further, there are a small number of people who do find, for whatever reason, playing scales difficult. And I think by playing scales, we mean from memory, or many of us mean from memory. And a good teacher, of course, will identify the difference between the less than diligent practicer and those who perhaps have genuine difficulties learning that, at which point we need different strategies. And ultimately, I guess for my purposes, it doesn't... am I going to be too nice here? In those cases, it doesn't matter whether you're reading the music or not, really, because the purpose of a scale is, in German, the Tonleiter, the tone ladder, to get you up and down the register, get you moving from the bottom, the middle, the top, and vice versa of the register, get you moving around. That's its primary function. I think where learning it from memory comes in is I've always been very clear to say I am not a musical intellectual. I'm not a great. I kind of avoid analyzing chord sequences, chord structures. I tend not to do it, and I always say it's because it's innate. It's just I innately understand the emotion of the chord. But questioning myself, is that really it? Or is it the fact that I know my bloody scales inside out, and that I know that every scale has a different emotion? So one way or another, I guess I understand the tonality, don't I? I might not name it as such, but I do. And of course, as I've said before, the intelligent good person, or the smart, I want to call myself intelligent, but the smart person questions themselves, and I question my teaching all of the time. And it was on a Sunday lunchtime, and I questioned, am I being too tough on this boy? Because, I'm expecting these scales in broken form. And I wrote that to one of my senior students, and I said, do you think I'm a bit too tough on him, And as I was typing it, I realised that by Sunday lunchtime, I'd already played all of the scales in broken form. I don't ask you to do anything that I don't do myself. And actually, as a bit of a postscript to this story, it's been very enlightening for my class, who have accompanied this very talented young student through the trials and tribulations of learning scales, and have with their own eyes and ears seen problems disappearing, vanishing. And we are literally going to reach the point of... it's like, now you were saying you had some problems. There's something else that I'm doing as well. I'm actually, this is a bit ad hoc. You're in my practice room. Here. 1 minute. I'll let you into a bit of a secret. I was asked whether I had any, what teaching aids I had, or what I used. And as I look in my practice room here, there's one trombone in the corner there. There's my wonderful Getson lying on its case there, and there's my son's trombone here, and he's 8 years old. He's learning the trombone, and one of the teaching tools that I have in my room is this. Possibly the worst drum roll you'll ever hear in your life. This is a practice pad. So as well as the scales, let's say you're going to do, I don't know, the Chanson Cavatine. And this is going to be totally unreasonable and uneven. I know that percussionists, listen to this, I'm so embarrassed, you know. Dun 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 dee da dee da dee da dee da ya ta 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 dee. You know, and you know, you can do that, you can break it down into all kinds of stuff. I have my son doing, you know, one note will be left hand, the other one will be, you know, right hand, so you get dotted eighths running through, you know, beam bum bum beam beam bum 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 bum, and so that's something else. So it's been kind of like, okay, well, let's make sure you learn your scales and let's hear you do that, just tapping, making sure. So you, and it's amazing how few problems still remain after that, musically or technically. Indeed, the famous double bass teacher in Vienna, Alois Posch, the guy who used to sit behind me in the Musikverein and bash me on the head with his bow in almost every concert. My head was literally, I would say, 1 foot in front of the F holes of his double bass. And just whaff, bang, and he'd pull. You know how the Viennese hold the bow, that German Haltung, bang, he'd pull it back, and he'd rip it off the string and bang it at my head at every concert. And then he'd be, sorry, in the concert. No, it's okay. But I know he said to his students, he'd say, in tune, in time, right rhythm, right articulation, right dynamics, and then shall we talk again? And I guess this is the basic. Does analysis lead to paralysis? Yes, it can, and it's really important that you don't start trying to fix a problem that's not there. Not just in your playing, but in life. Are you doing the simple things right? There was a great thing on YouTube about this decorated military person saying, if you want to change your life, make your bed. You know, and you know, well, that stuff goes. You know, start doing the simple things right. So, cycling back to the beginning, does analysis lead to paralysis? It can. So before you start analysing, before you start really, do the simple things right, do the simple things really well. And that leads me on to, oh no, actually no, it doesn't lead me on. There's another part. I've recently, I find myself in a very unfortunate situation right here now. I'm sitting recording this podcast for you. I should right now be, what time is it? I should right now be in Tel Aviv. I should have landed. I had a trombone day for the Israel Philharmonic with my friend Nia Erez on Sunday, planned. And I was due to be coaching the Israel Youth Orchestra next week on Shostakovich 9, and studied all my scores, done all my practice. Oh, and I had a couple of recitals, and I'd got my swimming trunks packed. I was all ready to go, and then this new variant in South Africa appeared, and still on my way to the airport when I saw the BBC report that said the new variant has been found in Israel, and we all kind of reasonably agreed that it wasn't worth the risk of me getting stuck there. So we thought it was going to go back to normal, didn't we, when we did certain things, and it ain't happening. There you go. Ho-hum, as they say. So I find myself speaking with you in my preparation for these concerts that I was doing. I decided to be really honest with my own students, and we'd been holding some class meetings on Sunday, because that's when you get nice rooms, because none of my colleagues are around, so you get nice big halls. It's good. I've always done it. 2:00 Sunday, meet up, and 2 weeks ago, I'd kind of just got back from London. I'd been more conducting than anything else. And it was like, hey, this is emergency measures. I'm due to be playing the Rachmaninoff cello sonata in Israel, all of it. And it's like, wow, you need a lot of strength here, and that needs to be good. And what I did was I showed them the development, the progress of my embouchure returning, if you want to put it, for want of a better way of saying it. And so the first time I played, I was brave enough to do something that not many people of my level are brave enough to do. I played badly. Not deliberately. It happened. It happens quite naturally to me sometimes. And no, it was the development. I just started increasing my practice. I was going over the hour and a half sort of. I'm not a big practicer, as many of you may know. And I played the two Gongold pieces, the Marietta's Lied and Piero's Lied from Die Tote Stadt that I've recorded and played many, many times. And I was focusing on what I wanted to happen. I was focusing on doing what I knew to be the right thing and releasing the air through freely and trying to create the music that I wanted to create. And the sound went thin when I went into the high register on a couple of places, but I knew that in a matter of days of just doing the right thing and releasing the air the way I wanted to and creating the music that I wanted to, that my face would acclimatize, for want of a better way of saying it. And sure enough, a week later, it's like, okay, listen to this, there you go, it's fine now. And what I was doing was I was showing them, as I played these recitals through, with my left foot, if I tapped the floor after I'd made a mistake, that was a coincidental mistake that is just a casualty of the practice room, if you like, as my embouchure gets used to doing more playing. Basically, just due to kind of perhaps overuse of the embouchure or whatever. Right foot tap means, okay, that's an issue. I need to fix that. So next time I'm practicing, I'm going to work on that. And it's amazing how many left foots there were as opposed to right foots. There were very few. And I think that's the skill in the practice room. And that's this analysis leading to paralysis thing. Don't work on things that are not a problem. When I play things, when I practice stuff, I'm putting mental post-it notes. I play things through. And I'll notice at a certain point, okay, that was a mistake. Watch out for that tomorrow. Make sure that doesn't happen tomorrow. And you keep doing this day after day after day after day. And you find out what is an issue that needs fixing and what is something that's just going to sort itself out for itself. And that's the experienced practicer and not, I watch students looking to me because I am famed for being an analyst. I know what people had for breakfast. I know whether their bedroom is tidy or not. I can guess from their personality types. I can hear their playing and work out how they practice. I can work out what they practice. And I can work out how they're thinking. After years of teaching, you get used to being able to do this. And being able to guide people. And I think a lot of people come to me wanting that guidance of, look, could you analyze me and see what I'm doing wrong? Can you tell me what I need to do? And the answer is very often you need to practice. But like this, and don't go trying to fix a problem that's not there. I remember talking to, I think I've said this before on podcasts, but I've noticed with other people's podcasts, they repeat themselves. Like a very iconic trombone player. He said, stop me if I've told you this before. You've told me it before. But anyway, I remember in London I was practicing some solo stuff and I was really having trouble with it. I couldn't work it out. I couldn't, And I thought, Maurice Murphy, the great Maurice Murphy, just put a Star Wars film on, you'll know who I'm talking about. And I was told by so many people he loved me. We had such a lovely relationship, and he was just like this icon to me. It was like an honor to work with your hero. And I said, Maurice, could you come and, can you hear this? It's not working. Can you help me? I could see him really racking his brain, trying to help. He was really, and he said, have you tried practicing it? I said, yeah. And he said, oh, I can't help you then, sorry. Going back to the scales issue, I did have another student. Branimir Slokar said to me, he said, he was my predecessor here in Bern. And he said, teaching is 90% police work and 10% pedagogy. So it's 10% teaching people and 90% making sure that they do what you bloody ask them to do. And I also, on the subject of scales, I have one of my students is a former Branimir Slokar student, and I said, so-and-so can't play scales. What would happen with Branimir? And the answer was, well, he would have one lesson, and then he would have another lesson when he could play scales. So I'm not alone in this. And Branimir also sometimes had this 3 splits and out rule. If you split 3 notes, that was the end of your lesson. I believe. I can't see that having worked with me. I think I would have just walked in and gone, and walked out, But, that's another thing with scales. But I found in a student, he came in and said, I've seen so-and-so getting so much better, playing the scales. And I've started doing it. It works for me. I said, yeah, but at the beginning of the semester, I spent 1.5 hours going through a practice routine with the whole class, and I showed you that. Yeah, but he said, I knew my scales. I know my scales, but, so I didn't think I needed to. You need to. I need to. I do it. You should too. Do the simple things in life well. What we're talking about here is the difference between being special and being extraordinary. Let's look at that word, extraordinary. Ordinary means kind of normal, doesn't it? Normal, everyday, ordinary. In fact, in beer, you had a lot of breweries back in the old days. You'd say, could I have a pint of ordinary, please? Or could I have a pint of special? And the difference in it basically was the alcohol content. And ordinary beer was like 2.8%. Yes, a beer that was 2.8%. That was back in the days when that's pretty much all people drank. And the special went up to 5%. Now, beers are starting at 5% and going up to the sky's the limit, aren't they? Goodness me. And to ordinary, normal. What's extraordinary? We want to be extraordinary. We don't want to be special. Well, we do want to be special, but the route to becoming special is being extraordinary. Extraordinary means doing the normal, simple things as and when they are required, as and when they are necessary, to an extremely high level. That is extraordinary, not only in the practice room, but in your life. Replying to that email, talking to myself here, replying to that voicemail message, contacting that person, reaching out to this person, doing the simple things right, playing your scales, playing your flexibilities, practicing with a metronome on. Yeah, how that's another podcast all in its own, isn't it, of course. But that's the difference between being extraordinary and being special. It's amazing, these words in our vocabulary that just float by us, that we learn as children. Extraordinary. More normal, more ordinary than everybody else. Let's look at the difference. How we play the normal things. How we practice the normal things. What's the difference between concentration and awareness? Should I be giving this stuff away? Probably not. Feeling generous today. What's the difference between concentration and awareness? Concentration is something that happens in our head. It's something that happens in our conscious brain. That, in my case, that idiot that talks to me all day long. That blithering idiot that thinks he can solve my problems and can't. That blithering idiot that thinks about pancakes when I'm playing long notes. That blithering idiot that thinks about wine, thinks about, you name it. You know what I'm talking about. Even when you're having conversations with somebody else, because our conscious mind is not under control. So, when your teacher tells you to concentrate, when you tell yourself to concentrate, what does it mean? It means really to be aware of what is happening in you, around you, the sounds, the smells, the feelings, the wind in the trees, the smell of the coffee, and focusing on that. That really is what concentration is. Not listening to that fool in your head who tells you that it can solve your problems for you. It can't. And we talk about the subconscious. Subconsciously, I think I knew that already. The subconscious is what's there when you turn that blithering idiot off. When you manage to get it finally under control. The subconscious is you. And when you turn that rambling nonsense off, that goes for this podcast as well. And you put your focus on what you're doing and you're playing. That's your awareness, it's not your concentration. You're aware of what is happening. And when you are aware of what is happening, you can adjust and change what is happening. And this speaks against the imagining what you do. I have become aware of some people who I know to be incredibly intelligent and really fine musicians, but they don't always play that way. And sometimes if you listen too hard to what's going on in your head, you're not aware of what's actually happening. Think about that. the awareness of what you are doing, how you are sounding, what you are creating. Awareness of this sound canvas, this tapestry that's in the air around you. That's the area that you create. You are creating art in sound, in the space in front, left, right, above and below you. That's where it's actually becoming real. So having awareness of what you are doing is something that's very important. Having awareness of what is happening around you all of the time, so that you don't spend your life with this out of control organ of thought ruining things for you. And it's very well intentioned, isn't it? It's, it's like, don't worry about this difficult passage, Ian. I've got this one for you. I'm going to show you. Oh, no. We've all been there, haven't we? I think that's about it. I wrote... Oh, no, there is another linked on to that. Here's another bit. I had a long conversation with quite a prominent, and certainly from my perspective, very highly respected trombone player, someone I respect a lot, about beta blockers. And this was years ago, we were talking about it, and he said, the generation before us, they didn't have the problem with nerves that we did. But then I guess if you kind of spent years of your life being shot at, you're not going to get scared by Brahms 1, are you? And it was like, we had a bit of a laugh, and yeah, I guess so, got bullets whistling past your ear, you're not going to get frightened by, someone down there with a white stick in their hand. But I wonder over the years whether it's actually something different to that. I wonder, as years have gone by, we've lost awareness in general and gone more and more into our head. Of course, technology like this that you're listening to on an iPhone or, with headphones on doesn't get you out of your head, as it were. It doesn't get you out of your conscious brain. But maybe without the distractions of so much media, technology. I mean, I remember when I started in the music business back in the early 80s, some people never even read newspapers. They didn't. And, every now and then, you go a bit before that, they turn the radio on to get the news from the one channel. And so all of this, we know what's happening. If a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world, it flashes up on your phone on the other. It's this technology is an incredibly wonderful thing. I speak to you through it now, for better or worse. But I wonder whether over the years our awareness of life and the experience of life and the beauty of life, the true beauty of life, that's what's around us and what we're creating, is becoming less and less. And I wonder, and this is where there's the relevance of this it's not even Sunday and I'm speaking from the pulpit, aren't I? I wonder if the reason why we get stage fright more perhaps these days is because when we perform, we have no choice. We cannot be in our heads. We have to be in the room. It's too much of a critical situation. And it's not a place we're used to being. We're not used to being aware. We're not used to having our awareness in the room. We're used to just having it in our head. And the shock of being driven out of our brains and out into reality is too much for us. And so I wonder that, going back to that story about the bullets whistling past your ears or whatever, whether that makes you incredibly aware It'd have to, wouldn't it? I occasionally go and stand in my local woods. When I say local, I could probably throw a tennis ball in it from here. So it's very close to civilization, very close to, safety. But it gets very dark, and I go and stand there when it's pitch black, around 11 o'clock or midnight, and I just stand. And sometimes I take my little boy with me. Don't do this at home, folks, unless you can guarantee it's safe. In fact, we can even see our house. But let me tell you that within 5 minutes, you can hear every twig snap. You can hear every mouse rustle through the leaves. And you are aware of a different awareness. Aware of a different awareness, very good. You are aware of another facet to us as human beings that is not normally there. And inevitably, after about 10 to 15 minutes, my boy says, "Can we go back now?" And I've heard something, and I've got the light on my mobile phone. What is that? And a couple of times ago, there were two eyes staring back at me. I don't know what it was. Just... And the last time, there were two deer trampled very close by us. And it's like you think, wow, we used to live like this. As a species, we'd live in woods. And it's a different awareness, a different sense. And so, I'm not suggesting you do that. That's a bit silly. I am a bit silly. But I am suggesting that rather than analyzing in your head, which might lead to conscious brain paralysis and a downward spiral, you really concentrate on putting your awareness into the room. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. If there are any issues that you found particularly interesting, don't forget to contact me, and always go to ianbousfield.com for lots more interesting stuff.